The morning mist hung thick over the Elizabeth River when they found her running shoes. Just her shoes. Size 7 Nikes, laces, still tied, sitting at the edge of the waterfront trail like she'd simply stepped out of them and vanished into thin air. It was October 15th, 2003, a Tuesday. The kind of crisp fall morning that made you want to breathe deeper, run a little farther. Penny Kearns had laced up those shoes at 6:30 that morning, same as she had every Tuesday for the past 2 years. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, waved from her kitchen window. Penny waved back. It was the last time anyone saw her alive. She was so routine about it, Mrs. Chen would tell detectives later, her voice breaking. Every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, same route. Same time. You could set your watch by Penny. But routines can make you predictable, and in Norfolk, Virginia, someone had been watching. The Elizabeth River Trail stretches for miles along the waterfront, connecting neighborhoods like a concrete lifeline. On busy mornings, it's filled with joggers, dog walkers, cyclists heading to work. But at 6:45 on a Tuesday, it's mostly empty. Just you and the sound of your footsteps echoing off the water. Detective Sarah Martinez arrived at the scene 43 minutes after a cyclist found the shoes. She'd been working Norfolk PD for 8 years by then, seen her share of missing persons cases, but something about those empty Nikes made her stomach turn. First thing I thought was suicide, Martinez would later recall. People leave their shoes when they jump. But the more we looked, the more wrong it felt. No note, no history of depression. Penny Kearns was 28 years old, worked as a graphic designer downtown, lived alone in a tidy apartment on Colley Avenue. Her friends described her as happy, stable, excited about a promotion she'd just received. Not the profile of someone planning to end it all. The search began immediately. Coast Guard boats swept the river. Volunteers combed the marshlands. Helicopter rotors chopped through the autumn air for 3 straight days. They found her body on Friday afternoon, caught in the reeds near the Botanical Garden, 2 miles downstream from where her shoes had been abandoned. The medical examiner's report was devastating in its clinical precision. Blunt force trauma to the head. Defensive wounds on her hands and forearms. She'd fought hard. This was no accident, Detective Martinez told the assembled press on Friday evening. Penny Kearns was murdered and we're going to find who did this to her. But finding him would take 20 years. The crime scene yielded precious little. A few scuff marks in the dirt beside the trail. Some broken branches where she'd been dragged toward the water, and underneath her fingernails, barely visible to the naked eye, a fragment of skin, touched DNA. The killer's calling card, invisible but present. In 2003, DNA technology was still catching up to television dreams. The sample was tiny, degraded by water and time. The lab could tell them it came from a male, probably Caucasian, but that was where the science ended. They ran it through CODIS, the national database. No match. They expanded the search to Virginia state records. Nothing. The DNA profile sat in a file, waiting for technology to catch up to justice. Detective Martinez interviewed everyone. Penny's co-workers, her ex-boyfriend from college, the guy at the coffee shop who always flirted with her. She canvassed the neighborhood, knocked on doors, asked the same questions over and over. Did you see anything unusual? Anyone who didn't belong? The trail went cold by Christmas. Cases like Penny's don't disappear. Exactly. They hibernate. The file gets thicker over the years, as detectives revisit old leads, chase new tips, hope for a breakthrough. Martinez retired in 2010, but she passed the case to Detective James Holbrook with a simple instruction: don't let her be forgotten. Holbrook was young then. Ambitious, the kind of cop who stayed late, reading cold case files by lamplight. He re-interviewed witnesses, digitized old reports, entered Penny's DNA profile into every new database that came online. Still nothing. Years crawled by. The trail grew colder, then genealogy went mainstream. It started innocently enough. People spitting into tubes, mailing off their saliva to learn about their ancestry, connect with distant cousins, trace their family trees back to Ireland or Italy, or wherever their great-grandparents had called home. But all that genetic information, all those family connections, they created something law enforcement had never had before. A web of DNA relationships spanning entire populations. Detective Holbrook first heard about genetic genealogy from a conference in Richmond. A specialist from California explained how they'd caught the Golden State Killer by uploading his DNA profile to a public genealogy database, then tracing the family connections back through generations of marriages and births until they found him. It's like having a roadmap, the specialist explained. The DNA doesn't. If your third cousin uploaded their spit to find their Irish roots, and you left DNA at a crime scene, we can find you. Holbrook drove back to Norfolk that night with Penny's case file on the passenger seat. The DNA sample was still viable, still waiting. Maybe it was time to wake it up. The process took months. First, they had to get approval from the district attorney's office. Then they partnered with a private genealogy company called Paragon Nanolabs, specialists in this new intersection of DNA and family history. They uploaded Penny's killer's genetic profile to GED Match, one of the public databases where amateur genealogists shared their information. The computer came back with a match, not a direct hit, but close enough. A third cousin, someone who'd submitted their DNA 5 years earlier, while researching their family history. They probably had no idea their genetic information would help solve a 20-year-old murder. From there, it was detective work of a different kind, not interrogations and stakeouts, but birth certificates and marriage licenses, census records and obituaries. Paragon's genealogists built family trees going back 5 generations, tracing bloodlines like archaeologists, uncovering ancient cities. They narrowed it down to 3 possible family branches, then 2, then 1. The trail led to a family that had lived in Norfolk for decades, blue-collar folks with deep roots in the community. And there, on a branch of the family tree that perfectly matched the DNA timeline, was David Michael Torres, 47 years old in 2023. Divorced, worked construction most of his adult life, lived on Pembroke Avenue in 2003, exactly 2 blocks from Penny Kern's apartment. 2 blocks from where she started her morning run. Detective Holbrook sat in his car outside Torres' current address on a rainy Thursday evening, studying the house, ranch style, small front yard, a pickup truck in the driveway that had seen better decades. 20 years ago, this man might have looked out his window on a Tuesday morning and seen Penny Kearns stretching before her run. Might have noticed her routine, might have decided to break it, but genetic genealogy only gets you so far. The DNA match pointed to a family branch, not a specific person. They needed direct confirmation, and that meant getting a sample from Torres himself, without him knowing they were hunting him. Trash pulls. Holbrook explained to his partner, Detective Lisa Park. Old-fashioned police work with a 21st century twist. They started watching Torres. Not close surveillance, just casual observation. Where does he eat lunch? What does he throw away? Does he smoke, drink coffee from disposable cups? The plan was simple: collect something he'd discarded, extract DNA from his saliva or skin cells, compare it to the profile from Penny's fingernails. It took 3 weeks, 3 weeks of following a man who had no idea he was being hunted for a crime he'd committed, when cell phones still had antennas and Facebook didn't exist. Finally, on a Wednesday afternoon, Torres stopped at a Subway near his job site. He ordered a turkey sandwich, ate half of it, threw the rest in the parking lot trash can. Detective Park waited until he drove away, then retrieved the sandwich. Chain of custody forms, evidence bags, straight to the lab. The DNA analysis took 5 days. It was a match. Perfect, undeniable, courtroom-ready match. 20 years, Holbrook said to his captain that Friday morning. 20 years, and we got him. The arrest happened at 5:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, exactly the same time of day that Penny Kearns used to start her morning runs. Holbrook insisted on that timing. Some symmetries matter. Torres answered his door in boxer shorts and a t-shirt, squinting against the porch light. clearly expecting to see a neighbor or maybe a delivery driver. Instead, he found 6 Norfolk police officers and a warrant with his name on it. David Torres, you're under arrest for the murder of Penelope Kearns. His face went white, not the confusion of an innocent man. The recognition of someone who'd been waiting 20 years for this knock. The neighborhood exploded. Collie Avenue had spent 2 decades living with whispers and theories, pointing fingers at shadows, wondering if the killer had moved away, or died, or simply gotten better at hiding. Nobody suspected David Torres. He was just another guy, another neighbor, someone you might nod to at the grocery store, without thinking twice. I can't believe it, Mrs. Chen told the local news that evening, the same woman who'd waved to Penny from her kitchen window all those years ago. He lived right here, the whole time. The confession came 3 days later. Torres waived his right to a lawyer, maybe exhausted by carrying the secret for so long, maybe realizing that DNA doesn't lie, and juries understand genetic evidence better than they used to. He'd been drinking that Tuesday morning in October. Started early, the kind of drinking that makes bad decisions feel reasonable. Saw Penny stretching in her driveway, recognized routine, followed her to the trail. What happened next, according to his statement, began as an attempted sexual assault and escalated when she fought back. I never meant to kill her, he told detectives. She was stronger than I expected. Kept fighting. I just wanted her to stop screaming. But intentions don't matter much when you're dead at 28, when your morning run ends at the bottom of a river, when your family spends 20 years wondering why. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Torres's defense attorney argued that the confession was coerced, that genetic genealogy violated his constitutional rights, that the evidence was circumstantial at best. The prosecutor countered with science, DNA probabilities that reached into the trillions, family trees that couldn't be fabricated, a confession that lined up perfectly with the physical evidence. The jury took 4 hours to find him guilty of first-degree murder. Judge Patricia Williamson sentenced Torres to life without parole on a cold Friday in February. Penny's parents sat in the front row, holding hands, grey-haired and worn down by decades of waiting. They'd never stopped hoping for justice, even when the case seemed forgotten. 20 years, Penny's mother, Margaret, said outside the courthouse afterward. 20 years of not knowing, of wondering if he was still out there, if some other girl might. She couldn't finish the sentence. Detective Holbrook, now a lieutenant, stood beside them in the courthouse hallway, thinking about the strange journey that brought them to this moment. How a fragment of skin under a dead woman's fingernails could hibernate for 2 decades, waiting for the right combination of technology and determination to wake it up. How a stranger's curiosity about their Irish ancestry could accidentally help solve a murder. How justice sometimes takes the long way around, but it gets there. This doesn't bring Penny back, he told the reporters. Nothing can do that. But maybe it means other families won't have to wait as long. Maybe the next time will be faster. The Norfolk Police Department now has a cold case unit dedicated entirely to genetic genealogy. They've reopened 47 unsolved murders from the past 3 decades, uploading DNA profiles to genealogy databases, building family trees, following bloodlines back through generations of Norfolk history. 3 more arrests have followed Torres. 3 more families have gotten answers. But genetic genealogy is more than just a law enforcement tool. It's a reminder that we're all connected, that our choices echo through time in ways we never imagined. When you spit into that tube to learn about your great-great-grandmother from Poland, you're also potentially helping solve crimes committed by distant cousins you've never met. Your DNA becomes part of a vast web of relationships that stretches across continents and centuries. Torres will die in prison. He's 51 now, eligible for parole, never, spending his days in a 6x8 cell at Red Onion State Prison in the mountains of Southwest Virginia. Sometimes he gets letters from genealogy enthusiasts who've read about his case, people fascinated by how their hobby helped catch a killer. He doesn't answer them. The Elizabeth River Trail is still there, still popular with joggers and walkers and cyclists heading to work. There's a small memorial bench now, about 50 yards from where they found Penny's shoes. A simple plaque. Penelope Kearns, 1975-2003. She ran toward the light. Mrs. Chen, now 84, still lives in the same house on Colley Avenue. Sometimes she sits on her front porch in the morning, watches the joggers head toward the trail, remembers a young woman who used to wave back. The neighborhood feels different now. Safer, maybe just more aware of how close danger can live, how evil can hide behind ordinary faces for extraordinary lengths of time. Detective Holbrook retired last year, but he still thinks about Penny's case, how it changed him, changed the way Norfolk investigates cold cases, changed the relationship between DNA and justice. He teaches seminars now, travels around Virginia explaining genetic genealogy to other departments, helping them understand how the future catches the past. The thing about DNA, he tells young detectives, is that it's patient, more patient than we are. It can wait 20 years, 30 years, however long it takes for the science to catch up, and when it does, when those family trees finally grow wide enough to reach the right branch, justice finds a way. Penny Kearns would be 48 now, if she'd lived. Might be married, might have children of her own, might still be running along that waterfront trail every Tuesday morning. Instead, she's a name on a memorial bench, a case file that got thicker over 20 years, a victory for technology and determination, and the simple belief that some crimes are too important to forget. The DNA that killed her also caught her killer. In the end, that might be the only justice possible, that our biological signatures, the genetic breadcrumbs we leave behind, eventually lead investigators home. Even when home is a prison cell, even when justice takes the long way around, even when it takes 20 years to knock on the right door. The morning mist still hangs thick over the Elizabeth River, some days, just like it did that Tuesday in October 2003. But now, when joggers pass that memorial bench, when they see Penny's name carved in bronze, they remember that someone was watching, someone cared enough to keep digging, keep testing, keep building family trees, until the truth finally surfaced. David Torres thought he'd gotten away with murder. For 20 years, he was right. He watched the investigation go cold, watched detectives retire, watched the neighborhood move on, probably thought DNA technology had reached its limits. The genetic profiles were only useful if the killer was already in the system. He didn't count on ordinary people getting curious about their family history, didn't realize that when his third cousin spit in a tube and mailed it to a genealogy company, she was inadvertently building a bridge between his DNA and Penny's fingernails. Didn't understand that justice sometimes travels through generations of family connections, following bloodlines like a river finding the sea. In the end, it wasn't advanced forensics or brilliant detective work that caught him. It was something simpler and more profound, the basic human desire to know where we come from. Our genes connect us to our ancestors and our descendants, but they also connect us to our crimes. Every family tree is also a roadmap to accountability. Penny Kearns deserved better than 20 years of waiting. But maybe her case represents something larger. The idea that time doesn't erase justice, only delays it. That the evidence we leave behind, even microscopic fragments of skin, can hibernate until the right moment, the right technology, the right curious cousin, uploading their DNA to find their roots. The killer lived 2 blocks away for 20 years. 2 blocks from where Penny started her last run. 2 blocks from the crime that defined his secret life. 2 blocks from justice. But distance isn't measured in city blocks when you're talking about DNA. It's measured in genetic relationships, family connections, the invisible threads that tie us all together. Those threads finally pulled tight on a Tuesday morning at 5:47 a.m., 20 years and 1 day after Penny Kearns laced up her running shoes for the last time. The knock came at David Torres' door like an echo from the past, like justice taking the long way home. Some crimes solve themselves eventually. The evidence just needs